Hey there, all you creepers and reapers. Welcome to another episode of the Femme Fatalities. I'm your co hostess, Anna, and I am here with.
Hey, Grieflings and Frightlings, it's Margaret, and oh my gosh, today we are talking about one of my favorite kind of horror movies. Anna, what kind of horror movie are we talking about today?
Well, it is a dish best served cold. If you don't know, it's revenge, which is its own genre. Revenge movies in general, whether it's horror, kung fu, action, drama, they're just great, and I feel like they exist unto themselves. Trigger warning: we're going to be talking about body horror, bludgeoning, bruising, assault, trauma, all sorts of things. And just to kind of give like a little PSA, in no way are we condoning the behaviors exhibited in revenge flicks. We are talking about the genre in general, as well as why we enjoy them and how it can be something very helpful to watch, depending on where you are at through your own life and or trauma journey.
Yes, revenge horror can be so cathartic.
Mhm.
That's one reason why I love it. Side note, I am working on a Substack article all about the healing power of revenge horror. It is just, I'm putting a lot of research into it, listeners, so I will link it. But yes, I love revenge horror. And as Anna was saying, we're not like discussing this or condoning the behavior, but when we feel a protagonist's pain, we are with them. We want this journey, and this can help
Mhm.
us in our healing journey with our own trauma to live vicariously through somebody else's actions. And yes, trigger warnings, as Anna was saying, gore, blood, a lot of revenge horror has to deal with sexual assault,
Mhm.
physical assault. There is some sort of wrong that has happened to our protagonist or our protagonist's loved one that they have now engaged in pursuing the people that did them wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there are so many movies we could list. I mean, I feel like the list just goes on and on and on. Maybe at the end of this, we can like talk about like just like, hey, these are some great revenge films if you haven't seen them or whatever. So that's something to keep in mind. Stay tuned till the end for that. Um, I actually changed my revenge film. Um, Originally, I was going to talk about I Spit on Your Grave, which, if you have not seen it, see the original. This is how our whole kind of conversation started. One of my colleagues had seen it for the first time, and they were like, holy crap. And I was like, man, there's nothing like a good revenge film. And then I texted Margaret, was like, hey, what do you think about revenge films? It is a great one. I mean, it deals with sexual assault, trauma, all sorts of things. And then I think at the time it was really related to taking back your power after you've been victimized. And if you really look at it, it's easy to get that out of it and see where the film is coming from in that aspect. But I did change my mind, so we'll get to that in a little bit. What about you, Margaret? Did you
Ooh,
pick one, or were there too many to choose from?
I can't wait to hear your choice. And just to touch on, right, you did pick I Spit on Your Grave. I have not seen it yet because it has, to me, it's
Yeah.
Anna and I talk about this a lot, that our society is very gender based, gender influenced. This male creator,
Mm-hmm.
my understanding is that he was pretty brutal
It is.
in
Yeah.
the trauma, and that's why I haven't watched it
Mm-hmm.
as a therapist.
Yeah.
I sit with this every day, and I was
Mhm.
like, I don't want to see this played out gratuitously. I don't want gratuitous
Yeah.
violence against women. There is a way to display.
Mm-hmm.
I just watched Violation about somebody who was raped and her revenge. This isn't the film I chose, and it was done well. It was still uncomfortable. We
Mm-hmm.
understood what was happening to her without having to see it
Yeah.
in gory, violent detail. So
Mm-hmm.
a way around, because I know you just asked like Did you ask me what movie I
Yeah,
picked?
which one did you pick?
Oh my gosh. Yes. So again, I love revenge horror. And this was really hard because most of my top horror films
Uh-huh.
are revenge horror. So,
Yeah.
and I will mention some others at the end. So, Autopsy of Jane Doe, love, love, love. I really wanted to pick this. I think we
Hmm.
have to have a cast about it. I didn't.
I haven't seen it in years, but I
Oh,
awesome.
love it.
Yeah.
So, I think we need to have a separate cast. Killing of a Sacred Deer, another brilliant revenge horror. Love, love, love. Didn't pick that one either. I went with Revenge because it's by a female writer director. And oh my gosh, I feel like the end of this movie is so worth it. So, Anna, what movie did you pick?
So, and I know we've already talked about this movie. So my revenge horror, it's Midsommar. And I know that sounds really weird to people, but for me, it was a very cathartic film watching experience. We have our antagonist and our protagonist who are very clear from the beginning. I don't, why, before we get into my whole, you know, issues, why did you pick revenge? Like, was there
Have
something?
you seen Revenge?
I have not seen it, so I need to add it to my list of things to watch. Also, to segue back, I Spit on Your Grave. It's like a 10 to 12 minute scene. It is pretty brutal. It involves gang rape. It's not just like a one and done type of situation with the brutalization and trauma. Um, I don't recommend it as like, oh, you have to see this movie due to that scene. Um, Honestly, like if you're watching on a streaming service that lets you skip ahead or skip certain parts, I would probably elect to do that just because it can be like really upsetting to watch. And for me, I went into the movie, I was watching it with actually a bunch of my guy friends the first time I saw it. And so just hearing them say comments like those pieces of shit, they're going to get what they deserve. The humor is like what got me through it. But like by no means do I recommend watching it or watching it in its entirety. The remakes, this attack scenes aren't as brutal, but the revenge scenes get more and more creative, and some of them they're pretty vile. I mean, it's great entertainment, but if if you can't sit through Terrifier 1 and 2, then I probably would not recommend I Spit on Your Grave
Ooh,
or
thank you
anything
for
remakes or sequels.
clarifying, and how fascinating that you saw it with a group of guy friends, and
Mm-hmm.
how powerful that they were even upset at like
Yeah.
what was happening, because as women, when we watch those scenes, that can be re-traumatizing. And then
Mm-hmm.
the discomfort if we are sitting with male-bodied people, because not always do they understand that experience. And so I'm so grateful that you
Mm-hmm.
had an experience where your co-viewers were actually upset and they were
Yeah.
expressing that.
My dude bros. Shout out, you guys. But
Yes.
yeah, so no, and I think that's a really great point too, is like, you know, even not understanding, right? So there are certain demographies which we're aware of that walk around consistently in fear, right? So you yourself know if you fall into one of those groups. We don't need to go into the dynamics in those sorts of groups. I think that every person walks around with some sort of fear related to who they identify as well as what others see them as. Um, so, I mean, I think it is really important to know that there are people that are outside of your demographic and your group and subgroup that will support you and will cheer you on and will do things to make sure you're comfortable. I think a lot of the time we let our fears lead us, and it closes us off to others who could really help us in our journeys. So, that's just something to food for thought worth mentioning.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. Like, and to piggyback that, who are your allies? How do you
Mm-hmm.
identify them? If you are in a fearful place, how are you finding those people that are actually going to be there, who can support you, who can help take care of you?
Absolutely. So
Yes.
revenge.
Yes. So Revenge, again, female writer director, which I love. That's why I chose this film, because I also feel like she brought an innate understanding, which is something I'm really curious about in filmmaking that I think Anna and I touch on sometimes. How does somebody's experience impact, or their understanding impact, the film that they're
Mm-hmm.
creating? So I feel like she, even, I don't know if she's ever been sexually assaulted, but she really plays on these gender constructs in society. First of all, our main character, she is the lover to a man who she's going away to his like little desert retreat thing, and he's going to go on a hunting trip with a couple buddies. So right there we're going into, she's
What?
already not respected because she's the lover, and the
Yeah.
predatory nature of men. So they're partying before they're going to go on their little hunting trip, and she's sexy, she's gorgeous, she's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, she's dancing provocatively. And so one of his friends takes this as, oh, she likes me. She wants me. So again, another social construct that if a
Yeah.
woman is dressed sexy and if she's dancing sexy, then she must be wanting male
Mm-hmm.
advances. So boyfriend leaves, he's got to go get the hunting passes, and this friend rapes her while he's gone.
Holy crap.
So then boyfriend comes back, and his solution is to shut her up. I'm going to give you this hush money. I got you a job in Canada. I'm going to send you off. And she's like, fuck no. No, call the helicopter, because that's how remote they are. I
Yeah.
want to go home. Like, get me the fuck out of here. He's like, no. So they end up chasing her. She falls off a cliff. And then the whole movie is how she turns it around. She starts to hunt them. And
Wow.
it's graphic. Like, the one friend that comes in. I have to share this with you because I loved this, not loved it, but it was a powerful part.
Mm-hmm.
So while the buddy's raping her, this friend comes in, and he's a chubby guy. And I think they planned it this way. And he's eating like these chocolate candies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you get like, ooh, you're like a pig. Like, this
Mm-hmm.
was the film creators, like, men can be pigs.
Yeah.
So when she kills him, she stabs him in the eyes. And I was like, what a
Well,
poetic
it makes sense.
kill, because you
Yeah.
watched, you didn't do
Mm-hmm.
anything. She's screaming, she's crying.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and the end is so bloody. It is a very bloody end when she kills her
Oh,
lover. Like, it is.
like, wait, wait, wait.
Oh, like they get into a chase, and like they're slipping in his blood because he's just
Mm-hmm.
losing blood all over the house.
I'm sorry,
Like,
that
it
to me
is.
sounds hilarious, and I need to see this now. Um,
Yes, it's a great revenge where you're like, yes, like,
mhm.
you go, girl, like, you get your
Yeah.
revenge.
Wow.
Yes.
Yes, please. Okay. I will be watching that soon. Um,
Yes.
that's just, well, and it's wild because, I mean, that kind of story is rooted in reality too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's, you watch a movie like that and you think, oh man, that's so crazy. But then it's like, you look in the news headlines and you could find something very similar. Maybe without like the bloody, you know, feminine rage portion, but the going somewhere with people you think you can trust and then something horrific happens. So it's really
Yes.
not that far away from actual
No.
events.
And that trauma, and just
Mm-hmm.
the illuminating the female experience of how female bodies can be unsafe even when they
Mm-hmm.
think they're unsafe. There's a scene where the boyfriend's gone, this is before the rape, and the guy's like, why don't you like me? Why am I not your type? And you can see her physical discomfort. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
as women, how many times have we been in that situation where
Right.
some guy is like, why don't you like me?
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to figure out, how do I get out of this? And we can see her discomfort, and
Yeah.
her just being like, I think she says something like, well, you're not tall enough or something. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, you liked me last night when you were dancing with me.
Ugh,
And so, yeah, and I was like, this is a
gross.
female experience, and
Mm-hmm.
that undercurrent of trauma
Yeah.
that women often carry and how we have to think
Think
of
about
our safety.
what to do. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you know, when you're confronted by someone who behaves in that way and you've expressed that you're not interested, like, please leave me alone, that kind of stuff, you kind of want to throat punch them, but you can't. Um, and it is more of how do you handle it. And it is really hard because you can't be too nice, you can't be too unfriendly. You can't be too provocative, but you can't be a prude. There are all of these sorts of standards that I would say really female identifying characters have to come up to. And it makes it very difficult. And you become so easily caught up in what's confusing to others that you start confusing yourself and you can lose sight of who you are.
Yes, amen. So, listeners, go watch this movie because it really does, whether you're male, female, non binary, it does illuminate what happens to female presenting
Mm-hmm.
bodies. And that can be really helpful as if you're more masculine facing. How do you support
Yeah.
female bodies? And also, how do you start to reconcile with if a woman is dressed sexy? I don't care if she's naked,
Mm-hmm.
if she's dancing on you, that doesn't mean she wants you. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you get to rape her. Like, that was what I appreciated to say. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
women too, like, we're not to blame for assaults that happen to our body. And that is often what happens as women.
Mm-hmm.
If I wasn't dressing that way, if I didn't dance that way, if I hadn't have been his lover all these ways,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, no, I tell my clients that I don't care if you are walking naked down the street.
No.
That does not give anybody the right to your body. So I really
Yeah.
appreciated this movie calling that out. Like, we don't have rights to other people's bodies.
Absolutely. Well, and men too. And I think that that's something that is not spoken about a lot. And we've touched on this before, and we're currently recording it's June. June is Men's Mental Health Month as well. If you're masculine identifying and something happens to you and it's because, you acted like you wanted it or to show that the other person's in power or, used as a bargaining tool, it doesn't mean that you asked for it or you deserved it.
No.
And don't ever feel that way and just know that there is help out there for you and you should not be ashamed. It doesn't make you less of a person. However you identify, if you have been assaulted or taken advantage of or mistreated, it does not make you less of a person. It says everything about the perpetrator's behavior and nothing about yours.
Yes, I agree. Rape is never it's never the victim's fault. It is the perpetrator's fault. So if you're listening and you have been sexually assaulted, then it's never ever your fault. We just sadly live in a society where it happens a lot more and
It does a lot
it's
more
not talked about.
realized. Yeah. And, if you are struggling, if you have been sexually assaulted, please call 988. Please reach out to RAINN. There are so many resources available that can help you. And it's important that you know that.
Yes. And we'll have them on our Instagram. I will put them on there, pin them, so you have access to those resources.
Yes, definitely. Well, and talking about resources, so now we're going to go from assault into abandonment. So, sorry to be hitting all these heavy things, but, a lot of the time negative occurrences and negative feelings are what make us want revenge. So let's be real about that. For me, I originally did say I Spit on Your Grave because when I think of like a classic, quintessential revenge horror film, it's that. But as a person, it's definitely Midsommar for me. And it's really because, Danny, our protagonist, has this horrific thing happen that sets her into a grief journey of flame. And the person that she anticipated would be there to support her the most basically doesn't want anything to do with her and is not being helpful. So, for me, I really related to that. I would say I specialize more in grief journey, caregiver loss, those sorts of items. Through my own grief journey, we've talked about this before. I did not receive the emotional support that I needed at the time through the sources I kind of expected to have. So at the end, when, Danny makes her decision about her, I guess we could say ex-boyfriend, um, when they show her and that smile at the end, to me, it's such a sense of relief. And seeing that film, I was still very much in my own grief journey. It was very cathartic for me. Especially there's a specific scene where they're on the airplane and she goes into the bathroom and she's just wailing. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like that. And like, I know this is a movie, but other people probably feel this way too. And it helped me. And I think the other thing is that she ends up living amongst the Harga, right? So my assumption is she becomes the May Queen. She's one of their new leaders. She's in a community where she's no longer misunderstood. People are there for her. They care for her. They want to support her. She understands the roles of the new society she's in, and she has a partner there who wants to understand and love her and build this life together in this community, right? So I think the best revenge sometimes is doing well for yourself and being happy, right? As cheesy as it sounds, and doing something to make a difference in the lives of others, right? So she's not just there as the May Queen. She is not genetically connected to anyone in this community, in this village. So she's helping to sustain the community, right? We know that douchebag boyfriend, had sex with one of the Harga girls before, his demise. But then we can assume that Danny's probably going to procreate and have children. So she's helping to sustain the community as well. And she has a purpose again, right? How many of us are going through a grief journey or some sort of change in life and we feel like our purpose is gone? So it's kind of a weird choice, but I think that for me, it's like, okay, well, this has happened. This is where things are. Where do you go from here? And if you look at it from that perspective, the movie to me makes a lot more sense.
Yes, and you touched on revenge as in you were a horrible person and look at my life is great without you. I look at where I am, what I'm doing so often, like Anna was saying, in grief or like life changes, we get so caught up in that, forgetting that, yeah, and when I'm in a better place, that is everything than
It is
pining over you or ruminating or whatever to say, look, I grew, I changed, I adapted, and yeah, that is.
It's great. And it's, this whole adage, when I was a kid, adults would tell me, don't wish your life away. And I never understood what that was about until, life experience set in my adulthood. And it's so easy to go through hard times and just think, well, I wish that this would have happened, or I wish that this person was still here, or, I wish that this other person was there for me, and, or I wish they didn't make me feel a certain way, or I wish that I was better, or whatever it is. But you spend all of this time wishing for things that aren't in front of you, whereas you're still here. You're still on this journey, right? For me, I'm very spiritual. I believe there is a purpose here for all of us. So you're on this journey. You have some sort of purpose. You probably don't even know what that is yet. But isn't it great to think you could be out there discovering it and discovering yourself versus wishing your life away?
Yes. Ooh, I love that. What a wonderful takeaway for our listeners.
Yes. listeners, we love you, and but not well in a little bit of a creepy way since we're horror girls, but we really do appreciate you listening to us and taking the time, and we want the best for you guys. We really want you to continue in your journeys and be successful, however you define success, and that is very important to us.
Yes, agreed. Ooh. Anything else about Midsommar or?
Well, I think we kind of covered that. If you want to know more, go to our podcast on the movie.
Yes,
And then I have to see Revenge, so we can do a full cast on that. Um,
yes.
what other movies would you say are like your faves?
So, like I Autopsy of Jane Doe up
Mm-hmm.
there, Killing of a Sacred Deer, love those two. Audition is a great
Yes.
Japanese revenge film.
I
Really
love
hard to, yes,
I love
listeners, it is. And I think it really shows us that when we have trauma,
mm-hmm.
that people can be hurt by our trauma responses who are not traumatizing us. I feel like
Yeah.
this movie did a beautiful display of saying,
Mm-hmm.
because you feel bad for the guy that falls in love with her because he hasn't caused her any trauma,
Mm-hmm.
but her trauma has caused her to harm him. And so often people just blame people's traumatic responses like, oh, you've
Mm-hmm.
hurt me, and not, yeah, and I'm working
Yeah.
on this because I'm feeling afraid and
Mm-hmm.
you are coming at me and my brain just sees you as danger.
Right.
That's part of the
Yeah.
trauma response. Yeah, and
And
yeah,
it's
trauma is
creative.
conflict.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, we have to do a cast on it, or just her creativity in general. Uh,
Yes. We will definitely, yeah. And I don't know if you've seen I Saw the Devil. It's a Korean revenge horror film.
mm-mm.
Oh my god. This one is gory, gory, gory. It is brutal to the point where, so a Secret Service agent, his wife is pregnant and she gets murdered by a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
The whole movie is about him hunting the serial killer, capturing him, torturing him, letting him go, hunting him, capturing. And so you, by
Mm-hmm.
the end, you feel for the serial killer. By the end, you're like, please, guy, just kill him. Just
Yeah.
like get it over with. Like this is,
Mm-hmm.
and again, like Anna was saying earlier, that pain
Yeah.
we feel that we just, it has to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
And then the Beckys. I don't know if you've seen Becky
yeah.
or Wrath of Becky.
Mm-hmm.
Those were also on my list. I have it right here.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to mention these revenge movies.
Every time,
I love
like, I see, like, Becky pop up in my suggested stuff on streaming, though, I always think, oh my God, Becky.
yes.
It's great.
So what are your other revenge horror flicks?
So for me, it's kind of weird because a lot of the revenge films that I like are more like action type films. But I would say like Carrie, of course, is a great revenge film. A lot of it kind of, for me, the revenge films that I gravitate to, like I love the gratuitous like gore and horror and stuff. I'm down with that, like Last House, Spit on Your Grave, that kind of stuff. But things that I really that hit me in a different way would be like Carrie, The Witches of Eastwick. I think that's a great revenge film. People don't see it that way, but if you watch it and you think about it in terms of, okay, Jack Nicholson's character is manipulating these three women, and what do they do in the end? They take care of it. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so I think that's a great one as well. Of course, even though it's not horror, I'm going to say Kill Bill, one of my most favorite movies, completely epic. Um, also, which it's not horror, but I feel like if you like horror, you're probably gonna love The Shogun Assassin. Um, the original. I'm not talking about the show that's on TV now. That's fine and dandy, but you need to see the original if you're looking into it. I think it's absolutely great. Um, gosh, what else? I mean, there are so many in terms of just different sorts of revenge films. But yeah, I mean, for me, it definitely is more like Carrie, Midsummer, like that type of vibe. Um, Honestly, I think that they slash them is within the revenge genre. I think it could have been a little bit more well done. Um, Personally, I think that for me, there are some stereotypes that the movie fed into that I didn't care for. Um, and I think the movie, even though it was a slasher movie, it could have been much more heartfelt and enjoyable in a few different ways. But when you think about it, I mean, it definitely is a revenge type of film in general. So, yeah.
Ooh, speaking of they them, there is Sovam, which is the creator is a transgender 17-year-old that made this vampire movie
Oh my
where the
gosh.
vampires actually go after like
Mm-hmm.
the racists, the bigots, the bullies. And so you could say that's
That's like
yes,
the Santa Clarita Diet that Drew Barrymore
yes.
show she was in.
Mhm.
She was going after like a Nazi baseball team, right? I'm like, well, go ahead.
Yes.
You know, it's that's I always say like if I had to become like a metaphysical creature, I would just go after bad people that do awful things.
Yes.
um
Yes.
yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I'm gonna need to check that out. Yeah. But
Yes.
it's interesting too how our minds function with revenge because um I think that like you said earlier, you want to cheer on the protagonist. You're like, they've been through all of this. Like, let's cheer them on. Let's give them props. Let's really be hopeful towards them and for them. And it's kind of fun to root along. And it's a nice break from like, just being like, oh, let's see if the final person makes it, which of course they're going to make it because they're the final person.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Ooh, good stuff. Yeah, there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing like a good revenge movie, even
Yeah.
as you're talking like John Wick, like the original.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that's a great
Mm-hmm.
revenge movie and how that helps settle us, like on a
Oh, yeah.
psychological side, that we're like, there is still good in the world and there are still
Mm-hmm.
people out there. And then it settles us. Like
Yeah.
there's something to say for
Mm-hmm.
witnessing this and then us relating and then feeling
Yeah. Like
better.
feeling better. Yeah, and the same I feel like could be said of Constantine. Now I'm like thinking about Keanu Reeves, but it's that whole, okay, I feel better now.
Yes, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, anything else on this big topic other than listeners? You're gonna have to come back because we've got some more
Yeah.
movies we're gonna have to talk about.
I do want to ask your opinion on one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not sure how I feel quite yet, but It Follows. I think it's a great movie, great concept. Do you think that qualifies as a revenge film?
I have not seen It Follows in a long time. Well, that's a great question. We might have. I think I'm gonna have to rewatch that
Maybe
and
we should do a cast on
see
it. Yeah. Yeah.
because it's been too long for. Yeah, like
Okay.
great question. I can't answer it because it's
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm kind of on the fence. I say we both rewatch it and then we come back to it. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Well, if you're listening and you need some catharsis, please check out some of these movies. We've got some body horror, we've got some visceral films, we've got trauma response films. We'll definitely include some additional suggestions on social media as well. Um, Definitely let us know what's your favorite revenge film and why.
Yes, agreed. All right. Well, thanks for listening.
Until next time, close those coffin lids and we'll dig you up when we're ready. Bye.
Yes. Bye.